From Patrols to Purpose with Rachael Harger. In this episode of Once a Warrior, Life Beyond the Uniform, we speak with Rachael Harger, a former Royal Military Police officer who completed 2 tours in Afghanistan. Rachael shares her journey through military life, the challenges of being part of a service family, and the transition to civilian life. Now working with the Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner's Office, Rachael supports veterans with the same dedication she brought to her service. This is a conversation about resilience, reinvention, and continuing to serve beyond the uniform. Welcome to this edition of Once a Warrior, Life Beyond the Uniform. Delighted today to be joined by Rachael Harger, who for most of her military career was an RMP, but who now works for the Northern Ireland Veterans Commissioner's Office as policy support and communication. Well known to the veteran community here, and I'm looking forward to getting in to Rachael's background in life. So Rachael, absolutely delighted.
Thank you.
You're here today. Today's a bit of poacher turned gamekeeper.
I'm in the hot seat today, so you're getting your room back.
You had a chance to quiz me a few episodes ago. Now it's my turn to put you in the hot spot.
Cool.
So are you looking forward to it?
I feel a little bit sick, but apart from that, it'll be fine.
You'll be absolutely fine. You'll be fine. When it's all over, you'll be glad you did it. I can guarantee it. So no, I'm looking forward to it because you're one of the unsung heroes, I think, of the veteran community. I know you won't describe yourself as that, but having been in post now as the Veteran Commissioner since the 1st of January and seeing what you do behind the scenes, seeing how hard you work, seeing how passionate you are for the veterans. I know this isn't just a job for you, it's very much a passion and a calling. So I think it's going to be really good today to hear a bit more about you and your background and also about the role that you actually have within the community. So what was your interest in the armed forces that you can remember?
Okay, so obviously I grew up in Northern Ireland, and while I was never involved in any troubles incident, and I never served on Alt Banner either, you kind of see soldiers around and checkpoints, and it's really normal for you growing up. But I remember being at the top of my mum and dad's garden, swinging on a swing, and there was an aircraft doing the loops and barrel rolls. I thought, never been in an airplane before. I said, I want to do that. And then Top Gun came out. I thought, I want to be a fast jet pilot here. So anyway, that started my kind of interest because I then joined the Air Cadets when I was 12. I think I actually joined a wee bit earlier than you were supposed to. Wasn't allowed to do anything, but I was in the door. Older brother had been an Air Cadet as well, so sort of following on his footsteps.
Okay.
So joining the local cadet squadron is what then started my whole kind of military career. But initially it was RAF. I wanted to be a fast jet pilot in the RAF until I did the aptitude test and realised I didn't have the aptitude to be a fast jet pilot. So my hopes were dashed and had to take another path in life. So, joined Queen's OTC while I was at university, and that kind of introduced me to the green side, converting from blue, and realised that I wasn't the worst at green. I actually quite enjoyed it. I thought, I wonder what this could go for. So just by process, went through all my military training qualifications with Queen's, and the natural progression there is, if you wanted to, was to go on and do a Territorial Army Commission. And I just followed the process through. So that was initially how it all started.
Okay. And within your family history, was there people that served?
Just an uncle. I had an uncle who was RAF police. He was a dog handler, which didn't have anything to do with why I ended up going Royal Military Police. But he, on the RAF side, that's kind of where I went Air Cadets, and that started the whole thing off. So apart from my uncle, who was a national standard bearer for the Royal Air Force Association for several years, so I'd always watch him in Albert Hall every remembrance. So that was sort of the one key person that influenced that side of things.
Okay, very good. So your journey to the RMPs, you mentioned there, you obviously TA first.
Yes.
Talk me through that journey as a reservist.
So I did my degree in Belfast, so I was with Queen's OTC at that point in time. But then I just decided, right, well, the only way, I thought, I'm coming to the end of my degree, I need to get a job. I was like, what am I going to do in life? You know, a lot of people ask that coming out of university. So I thought, right, well, this army thing I'm doing with the Queen's OTC seems to be okay. I'll apply for the regulars and see how far I get. And PSNI was recruiting at the time, so I thought I'll apply for that. And I thought the only way I'm really going to use my degree, because it was an art background, art and design, is to go into teaching. So I thought I'll apply for all three of these things at the same time, and one will hopefully come off. And the first one that came off was the teaching. I said, we've got a place for you at St Martin's College in Lancaster to go and do your postgraduate certificate in education. I thought, brilliant, that's my backup plan. Qualification lasts for life, give me direction in life, so I will do that. And my friends thought I was going to interviews and assessments continuously for 3 months for fun, and just because everything collided with each other. So the next thing, I was accepted into the PSNI, and I was like, ooh. I thought, right, okay, I'll ask if they'll put that on hold for 12 months to let me do my PGCE, which they agreed to. So I thought, brilliant, but if something happens, then I've got a fallback. This is fantastic. So whenever I was away doing my PGCE, my teaching certificate, I then managed to get an offer from Sandhurst. So I was incredibly lucky. I had 3 careers on the table. I thought I only expected, or not, didn't even expect, was hopeful to get one. So I had to make some decisions. And I thought PSNI is a good career, but you're in Northern Ireland. It's a community. It's a lifelong commitment, more or less. I have seen what others have gone through. I thought, I want to extend further than that. So I said, thank you, PSNI, for accepting me, but I'm going to decline. So I declined my space and completed my newly qualified teaching year in Burnley, and joined the Royal Artillery Reserves for that year and a half to complete my teaching experience. And decided while I was in that secondary school in Burnley that if they were ever going to send me into a war zone, I wanted to go in armed, so joining the army wasn't the worst thing in the world. And then I started Sandhurst as a regular in January 2006.
Okay. And as soon as I mentioned the RMP there, I can just hear the podcast listeners, some of them booing and hissing in the background. So why the RMPs? Of all the options open, why the RMPs?
When I went to Sandhurst, RMP was never on the card. I didn't really ever factor it because I was sponsored by the Royal Logistics Corps, which is just an admin sort of feature. I had been employed and I got qualifications through being a reservist in the Royal Artillery. So if anything, that's where I thought it was going to go. Yeah. But whenever you're there, you get presentations from every cat badge. You have to sit through them all. And it's like a selection process for university where you choose 4. And then you go to sort of familiarisation visits. That gets reduced down to 2. They look at you, you look at them. And then you go to interview for your 2 chosen cat badges that you would like to commission into. And if you're lucky, you get an offer from both and you get to choose. If you're lucky, but not as lucky as getting 2 offers, you get 1 that gives you direction. If you're unlucky, you go into sort of like a clearing process. So while I was at Sandhurst and the RMP were giving their presentation, it wasn't all investigations and sort of getting naughty soldiers and bulleting them through the court system. It was a close protection aspect that attracted me. I thought, ooh, I like this. This is like running about, being covert, looking out, leadership. I thought, this is for me. This is what I want to do. I know you have to, I know you have to do the investigation side and build up because that's your core function, but it's a close protection side. So I joined whenever I was fortunate. I went to interview for the Royal Artillery and the military police. I was fortunate to get an offer from both. And I thought, oh, do I go with what I know, the safe option? Or do I go into this unknown world where I don't know anything? I know the rep that the military police get as well. And I thought, actually, and this was a big factor, in the artillery, it's 90% plus male, less female. And I thought the RMP is sort of 60% male, 40% female. And it was a factor so I thought, you know what? I don't have time for all that nonsense. I'm just going to gamble, go here, make the best career I can. And that's what I did.
Okay, it's interesting, and I'll come back to the male-female element, but it's interesting that you say there that as part of the process, you're in an interview and you're looking at they're looking at you. Yeah. So they obviously, RMP, saw something in your CV or something in the interview that they felt that you had the skills. I haven't worked with you, I can see what some of those skills are, but did they ever sort of speak to that? What was it about you that they liked as a candidate?
I'm really honest. What you see is what you get. I think I have subtitles on my face, so I find it really hard to lie. It's just not into me. Integrity is really, really important. But I think for for the artillery, I find it was very much walk the walk. You're going into them, it's a very historic regiment, also the RMP, but in a different sense. And I remember speaking to an RMP major at a dinner. This is before you sort of been allocated or selected. And he was saying how one of his favourite fancy dresses was a leopard print dong and some body paint. And it's kind of trying to decide where you best fit into. And I thought, well, they're serious, but they've got a sense of humour as well. And I just thought, you know what? Personally, I feel I'll fit better in long term here. But at interview, they're looking at all the different core skills, your ability to communicate, your ability to lead, your background. And it's just because it's like going for a job interview. You need to get the best person to fit the job. And I was just really fortunate that I was lucky. I got a choice.
Yeah, okay. Now let's grasp the nettle of the sort of male-female in the military. So you were saying the 90-10 and you didn't really have time for that nonsense. Was that based on experience where maybe you felt there was sort of some uncomfortable situations with being a female, or had the army moved on? Obviously it's moved on a lot from where it was maybe 30, 40 years ago. So what was your experience in that subject?
Okay, so I didn't have a bad experience with the Royal Artillery. I will put that first and centre. But what I do know is that whenever you go into a male-dominated environment, you have to, when I say prove yourself, you do sort of have to fit in as quickly as you can, because depending where you go, you don't want to be physically weak, you don't want to be mentally weak. And you know, if I get what I would call assertive, other gentlemen might feel as over emotive, and there's different words to be used. So I, throughout my career, would never shout, because once you raise your voice, you've lost the argument, even if you're trying to. But you know, others can get away with that. And it's not a case, and I don't hold any grudges at all. It's more a case of everybody fits into a certain place, and it's for yourself finding out where you fit in. So in today's society where women can go into any branch in the army, which wasn't the case whenever I joined, because you weren't allowed to join infantry, tankies, you know, there were certain bits, which is fine. And I had no issue with that either, might I add, because it's a time and space.
Yeah.
But it's about being capable and making life as easy for yourself as well, and figuring out where you want to be. If I really wanted to go to the artillery, I would have gone, and because of my nature, I would have tried to make the best I could have. But I just felt that the RMP was better for me.
Mm. In terms of, say, where the military is at the minute, and maybe the big debate about women on frontline combat zones, etc. Any views on that they're willing to put your head with the parapet?
That's a really contentious issue.
It is.
People have their own views, and I respect everybody's views. Me personally, I have a daughter. If my daughter wants to join any of the services, I would actively encourage it. I would discourage her from going to the teeth arms, not because I don't think she wouldn't be capable, but because I think that biologically, we're built differently from a man, and being able to carry the weight, the different strengths, our attributes come in different areas. And this is just my view. I know people will disagree with this, and that's absolutely fine. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions. But I know that when I went through Sandhurst, which is a year of basic infantry training, out of my platoon of 35 females, there was one that didn't sustain an injury throughout that time, and that was just 1 year. So I personally would say, get a skill, get a trade, and often to some of the guys as well, you know, what are you going to do afterwards? Because if it's something that you want to do for 4 years to get it out of your system, go for it, absolutely, right behind you. But if you're thinking about what am I going to do next, and what skills am I going to bring, and am I going to break myself potentially permanently while doing this, like pelvic injuries as well, which are quite prominent in females, and not all of that's always discussed. It's about the opportunity. Yeah. But my view is, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but it's up to the individual, and I respect everybody's choices.
Yeah, no, that's not just a way of putting it, between the can and the should. I think it's definitely interesting in terms of discussion of frontline, and that combat, you know, environment, and even people talk about special forces, and it's like, well, if anyone's able to complete the training to the same standard, well, then there's a discussion to be had. The reality is, probably very, very few women would be able to complete, say, SAS, SBS selection.
Yeah.
And that's not my criticism in any way, shape, or form. As you said, biologically, there's just differences.
Yeah.
And that, at some point, that has to be a factor when it comes to, you know, to rules. But I get the point of opportunity as well, which is interesting.
No, absolutely. And the thing is, it's sort of, yeah, there's a standard, and that standard shouldn't be lowered. If you are, like, because there's a female officer now in the Paris, like, she must be nails. Well done, Tipper, absolutely, because it is not easy. And then, but it's all that leading from the front. And I would always argue that the front line isn't what it was back in World War II or even the Falklands side of things, because I was frontline in Afghanistan. I was right up there with the guys and girls, and enemy could come at you any direction as well. So even though at the time, and I wasn't infantry and I wasn't able to be in tank regiments, I was still up there with getting shot at just as much as the blokes right to me. Bullets don't distinguish what gender you are. So it's being able to do your job and being able to do it well. And bearing in mind, every single person that joins the forces is a soldier first.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, you mentioned Afghanistan there. I was going to come on to that. So you had 2 tours
Yeah.
of Afghanistan. So that must have been an incredible experience for you. What's your sort of abiding memory, if you like, of those 2 tours?
I had 2 very different tours. So my first one was with the RMP company. I was the operations officer. Now that sounds like, oh, I'm boring in an ops room. Far from it, because most of my job actually was getting the company to Afghanistan and making sure that all of the battle groups and battalions had the policing support they need, and all my guys and girls were trained up to the standard they needed to be, because it was Herrick 12. There was still a lot of bodies coming home, draped coffins and things, and it was very real. The previous company we took over from had lost guys, so we knew that there was a very real chance we could be sending people home. But whenever I was actually out there, because the Sergeant Major was the pivotal kind of glue, I suppose, and the continuity in Camp Bastion for all the ops side of things, whereas then I would have to go to Lashkar to cover other brigade provost officer duties, the OC, and I even did prison visits in Kandahar, and then because of virtue of being female, when needed I was on search ops as well. So I was everywhere in Helmand during my first tour, supporting various different operations and forces and things. So it was pointy, it was interesting, it was fast-paced. If anything, it kind of gave an adrenaline rush in many ways.
Yeah.
Whereas in my second tour in Afghanistan, I was the OC of an international mentoring team with Canadians, Jordanians and Americans, which was...
That's less intense.
Yeah, but very, very different, less intense, but you play the diplomacy card an awful lot more, and the culture and everything else. So complete 2 opposite sides of coin, because like second tour was in Kabul, first tour was in Helmand. So I've been really lucky. I've got a broad breadth of experience across my career.
Did you come across any of the Royal Regiment guys? Were they there in any of your tours? No.
No, so squeaky soup. No, they weren't on my tour, but they were taking over from us on Op Herrick 13, so different brigade. But I had to go up to Sangin to check in on one of my RMP sergeants, and I walked around the corner in the headquarters, and there's this big Ulster Way sign painted on the wall. I was like,
Proper order.
Like-
Proper order.
proper size, fonts, everything.
You just thought at home.
Oh, I've got a photo. I've got a photo with it. It's like you can't go all the way to the middle of Helmand in Sangin and find an Ulster Way sign anywhere else. So, yeah, so they left a mark.
As we tend to do. As we tend to do. So, in terms of Afghanistan, then, any instances on the ground or anything that you're willing to share or talk about of scenarios?
I don't think people appreciate necessarily what Afghanistan is like, because most of the Afghan people are actually really nice. Okay, so you get this, everybody's a bad person, but certainly in my capacity as a female searcher dealing with the women and children, they were really nice and friendly and actually really welcoming. And then a lot of the ANA soldiers as well, the Afghan National Army soldiers that were attached to us were fine, but there was always the element of doubt, because there were a lot of ANA soldiers that would turn. And one particular incident that always resonates in my mind is that we're in a place called Nari Siraj, which is where the Gurkhas had PB 1 to 4, and in Patrol Base 3, 2 weeks before I went, or 2 weeks prior, Lieutenant Turkington, who was Royal Irish, he was killed because an ANA soldier had shot an RPG through the ops room. So I had a lads corporal that had to deal with that initial scene side of things. So this is what kind of, it's not just grouping people or whatever, getting people into trouble. It's you have, as a military police person, you have to be on there, gather as much evidence and chaos as what you possibly can, assist the battle groups, whatever they need, because there's always coroner's inquests afterwards. So I was aware that 400 metres up the road, he had been killed a week before, and then 2 weeks after, I'm in Patrol Base 4, which is renowned for IED laying. So many people being blown up on this stretch of road, and had to go out on a search op. And there was this little Scouse corporal, I forget his name, but he was brilliant. And he's like, right, you footstep in every single footstep I do on this road. And they're walking down that road and seeing bits of mastiff that have been blown off on the side of the road. And you're thinking, oh, today could be my last. And that really puts into perspective that not only are you having to be aware of everything around you, you're having to be aware of every step you take on this sandy road where it is so easy to plant an IED, because people back home were seeing the repatriations coming back through Royal Luton Bassett. They weren't seeing the 3, 4, 5, 6 plus amputees coming home that were injured and were clinging on to life, and that there was so many injuries that if you were shot, that was seemed a minor injury compared to if you were blown up, which I know is not the case, because it depends where you get shot.
No, I know what you mean. There's like the public perception, and there's the severity of it in terms of that. And it's interesting you talked there about, because you're walking along thinking this could be it. That's one of the hardest things to explain to people who are not in the military, is even though you may go on a tour to Iraq, I was obviously in Iraq, they're not in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan obviously was another level up from Iraq. But the concept of, for that 6 months, particularly when you're out on the ground, it's just the pressure. It's is that car a car bomb? Is that person, a dicker set up a sniper? All those things are just a constant pressure. And even when nothing happens, weeks on end, that's still in your mind.
The night before, we'd been in the compound, we'd only just arrived, and there were rounds came over the top of us, and you're like, what? It's like, well, I was there because girls stick together. It was a female corporal. We went to the showers because it was like a tent, and it's like, right, ma'am, you go in first, I'll stand guard. I thought, that's okay. So I got washed, came out, then the rounds came in, and she was in the shower, and she's like, ma'am, what did I do? Because you don't want to lie down on the floor in the shower, and no, that's not there. So you're like, so there was always that kind of high intensity.
Yeah.
You were always on guard, that kind of way. But again, it's sort of, whenever you're in that situation, so often you get a bit of an adrenaline as well.
Yeah.
And then it gets really tiresome, and then you have afterwards.
Yeah. And do you find your training kicks in? Because a lot of the times when I talk to people, it's like you never know how you're going to react in those scenarios sometimes.
Yeah.
And after you look back and you maybe did things without consciously doing them, but the training kicks in.
Yeah, your training kicks in, but it's even people to your left and right that you might not normally be friends with or associate with. You put your life in their hands and they put their life in yours, so it's a real teamwork side of things. And all you have to do is make sure you do your job well and that you are switched on, and that's all anybody wants whenever they're right there.
Okay, so Officer Training Corps, Territorial Army, RMPs. You then decided to leave. What was the reason to leave, and what was your transition like?
So I'd probably say I had a long transition, because I decided to leave in 2011, but didn't actually leave until 2016, because I was on a, let's say, high intensity training course where I had a burden on my back that probably weighed more than I did at the time. And I was in the middle, if you give me a map of the Brecon Beacons, I can pinpoint you where I decided to leave the army. And I just thought, what am I doing? And I thought, you know what, I want this sofa that whenever I come home to at the end of the day, I can just sink into and come home. And buying a sofa wasn't an issue. It was more that I didn't have room in the mess to have a sofa. I thought, right, well, I need to buy a house. I don't want to move every 2 years. It's a bit of a problem here. And then I thought, right, if I want to have a family, or I wasn't in a relationship at the time, but if I want this, then this lifestyle is not conducive. It's not going to work. So I thought, right, I need to leave, but I'm not going to leave straight away. I'm going to kind of formulate my exit plan. So I thought, right, I'll go back to my unit. I'll see if I can get another tour to Afghanistan, which was my second one in Kabul. And And then I sort of tried to manipulate a posting back home to Northern Ireland because I knew that's where I wanted to, just by having spent about 10 years in England, I wanted to come back for various reasons. And yeah, and luckily all that worked out. So I came back to Northern Ireland for my final posting, bought myself a house, and so had my job. And 6 months later, met my now husband, who was also serving at Aldergrove at a work party and a roller disco. So it all started with high five and roller skates, and yeah.
It took a bit of time to get to the romance there, but you got there
Yeah, I did. But no, he was hiding. I can't believe that I spent 10 years in England and I come back and find myself an Englishman in Aldergrove. But that's the way life.
Yeah, that's like unusual. Very good. And was there any concerns about getting into a relationship with someone else in the military?
Oh my goodness. So this is still makes me cringe. So what happened? My husband was WO2. He was staff sergeant at the time. I was a captain, and 2 different units. And I thought,
I think I know what's coming. I know what's coming.
There was, in my unit, there was a couple of people that I thought, I don't think you're 100% on side. I thought, right, whenever it looked like it was going to be a thing, I thought I need to tell the CEO about this just in case there's any issue because of the whole rank thing.
Yeah.
And so I went to my colonel at the time. It's like a big open plan office. I said, sir, can I have a word with you? He said, yeah, sure, take a seat. I was like, oh no. So I sat down and I had rehearsed this in my head and said, right, listen, well, it's like this. Do you know how hard it is internet dating in your 30s? Like, there are so many weirdos out there. Anyway, I went to this party. I find this nice, and he's like, whoa, let's go and have a coffee. So I just verbal diarrhea out what I was trying to say. I was like, can I please have permission to date this guy? I feel really weak because I don't even have to ask my parents who I date, but I have to ask you. And he's like, whoa. I said, and he was brilliant. He was like, in this day and age, it's bad that you even feel like you have to, but actually there's no conflict of interest. Crack on, I wish you luck side of things. So it was all that fine, but I was absolutely mortified. That was a cringy conversation.
There must have been some jokes though between you and Matt around rank. In the early days now, there must have been.
The Wednesday was the best because Matt has always aspirations. He'd come from private soldier. He was a Royal Anglian to begin with. And then he made his way up and he was doing really well and what have you. And as I say, he was a staff sergeant whenever I met him. And he'd sort of aspirations to become an LE officer. And so he'd Captain Harger, and this is what it was. But then on our wedding day, the best man sort of got up and went through and he was trying to give advice to Matt because he likes skiing. And he says, I can ski backwards. He said, okay, well, what about freediving? It's patience. And all. He says, I'm really good at that. And he said, well, and then got onto his career and said, well, he's always highly and wanted to be Captain Harger. And then they presented Captain Harger a little Blanche to me, so to Matt. So he never got Captain Harger, but I did. So, but it's never been. We understand each other, and we've got each other's back. There's no jealousy. We understand. He knows exactly what I've done. I've never had to hide my experience with him. He knows everything. I know what he's done in Iraq. His kind of where he got spooked on that side of things. So to be able to be in that relationship where you've got so much in common, but be different as well, because we had sliding door moments as well. I actually walked into Matt's office in Afghanistan on my first tour, and it just happened to be that the godmother of our daughter was there, his friend, as opposed to him, but he sort of was on off that office at the same time. So same camp in Bastion in 2010, and then again another sliding door moment where we were in the same small camp sitter in Kabul in 2012. We were there at the same time and we didn't meet, and it wasn't until destiny.
That's interesting, yeah, very much so. So then transitioning then, I suppose, was slightly different for you because you obviously had a husband still in the military, but what was your experience like at transitioning? How did that go?
So I was lucky because I was already a trained teacher, so I had my backup network in play, so that was fine. Matt was, as many people are in the military, pension trapped. And so he had about 7 or 8 years left to go of service because he would have been financially firing himself to leave earlier. So it ended up that whenever I had my whole life set up as a perfect transition, and then Matt scuppered it because I left then my 10-year military career to move to England where he was posted at the time. to be effectively a military wife. And I, hand on heart, admit I failed as a military wife. It was not the best time because I had just left service to then go and live on a pad's, estate, and I'm trying to get away from the military, but I'm sitting beside two regiments of EOD engineers. I said, oh, this is not for me. So anyhow, I did that for 10 months, and we'd bought our house back in Northern Ireland. It was projects and kids and things. So it ended up that luckily Matt managed to get a posting back to Northern Ireland. We had 2 years and agreed that we'd be married unaccompanied then. So that I was able to have my own career. The kids were able to stay in the same schools, and I had 2 sets of grandparents locally as well and support.
A bit of consistency and
100%. So
the stable environment, if you like.
So I respect army wives because they are able to pick up and move and follow and adapt. I wasn't able to do that in the same way because I was leaving my own career. I needed my own stability. I wanted my own career and worked all my life and those professional qualifications, and to be getting up and moving every 2 years, I thought, no, I can't do this. So respect to military wives for being able to do that, because me personally, I couldn't. So that's why we chose the way that we did.
Okay, so your journey through the military and transitioning out of the military probably leads nicely into the role you have now, policy support and communication in the Veterans Commissioner's Office in Northern Ireland. So what made you apply for this post first and foremost?
So whenever I left, my first proper job was with cadets, but it was a sort of a short-term contract because I was covering a career break for somebody else, which was brilliant. So massive shout out to cadet instructors because they shape the lives of so many people that they don't even know. And also I was in the youth sector thereafter, and following that I had gone to work with Scouts as their development officer for a short period of time, but then COVID hit. And I was thinking, well, Scouts isn't funded the same way as cadets is, so am I even going to have a job whenever we're let out in COVID and everything? So there were concerns. So I thought, well, I'll just have a look and see what else is out there. And the Commissioner's Office was opening up and the position. And I thought, well, I've learned loads. I can fit pretty much most of the category. And there's what I don't know I can learn. Yeah. And I thought, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring, do my best, and hopefully pull out some really sort of unique interview examples whenever it comes to interview, and win for it, and was successful in the end, which I'm really, really grateful for, because from being in this role and speaking to veterans, particularly somebody who's had to agonizingly pick up the phone to either ask for help or get some direction in a world where we have been told, don't say you served, have your alias, or all this kind of stuff, and then you say, oh yeah, I served with the Royal Marines. I was in Singham when they were there in 2010, or you speak the language and the walls just fall down. Plus knowing all the military policy and the systems, and having gone through the process both through myself and my husband, so I've done it twice, kind of things. It just gave a whole lot of experience that. Everybody's got unique experiences and everybody's is valuable, but I just thought it'll hopefully bring value to the veteran community to know that there's somebody in the Veterans Commissioner that isn't just a civil service but a servant, but has actually served, walked our path, and can empathise with what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's important to highlight, because there may be a perception in some that yourself and other member of staff, Alan, are NIO civil servants. You had no job in the civil service until you applied for this position. So while technically you're an NIO staff member, I mean, in reality, you're not. You've just brought your own military experience to the table in this role.
Yeah, 100%, because I came straight into this job, so I know nothing in this civil service career side of things other than being in the Veterans Commissioner. Yeah. So a lot of the other policy areas I rely on Alan for, because that he knows it. So we have complementary strengths. So anything that I don't know is all over to him, and then anything military that comes in comes to my desk, and then obviously we advise, connect as best we can.
Yeah, from there. So describe a typical day, but How does one of your days unfold within this role?
Well, I've got this commissioner and he comes up with really good ideas like podcasts, and I'm thinking, how many podcasts have I done before in my life? So,
He sounds a great guy.
oh yeah, I'll tell you what, it keeps my learning curve vertical, that's for sure. No, on serious note, every day is different, and every day could be, some things are expected, some things are completely unexpected. So everything from legacy to event planning to dealing with an individual inquiry, preparing for like bigger aspects where you're, for example, if something's happened and you're going somewhere and you need all the background, there's a lot of research involved in that as well. And then there's also the kind of sense checking as well, because we are a neutral office. We represent everybody. It's thinking, right, you want to do your best for veterans and you'll do that everywhere, but there's a line as well, because a lot of the things that come back is about the covenant. We know that the covenant is about preventing disadvantage, not advantage. And lots of veterans, and me included, I'll be honest, leave with a misinterpretation, because that's what you're told side of things, that the covenant will give you things, but actually it's just to make sure you're not disadvantaged. And there's a massive difference in that, I think. So it's managing expectations but getting the best outcomes for veterans, because I know a lot of veterans come to our office and most of the time we can help in some kind of way, but there are cases where we say, listen, the reality is we're in a process that we just have to follow, and we just have to be patient as well, because while there are some amazing charities and organisations out there to help, there's no one person can do everything and solve everything, and that can be frustrating sometimes, because all you want to do is do the best for the people that are your community.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would you say is the most difficult parts of your job, and what are the parts that you most enjoy?
Oh, difficult parts. Well, I would say the most difficult parts are whenever you're dealing with veterans that that veteran's not in a good place, but actually you're limited of the assistance that you can give. So that's probably, I would say, the hardest part. But then on contrary to that, and that's actually a small proportion as well, because usually if we can't help 100%, you can at least help a little bit, and that makes a sense. And having a sympathetic ear, I think, sometimes is important as well. But the most enjoyable parts of my job, I think, are just hearing all the inspirational stories and people and experiences of people, because it's not that one regiment won the war, everybody had a part to play. And like hearing from World War II veterans that have been torpedoed, all the way through to guys that have lost their legs and how they have come round in Afghanistan and everything in between. I just am in awe of all of these people, because every single veteran that has ever served has had to at some point have selfless commitment. And they have gone through hardships, they have gone through discomfort, they've been away from families. You see those medals, people think, oh, you've done lots of operations. All those medals are time away from your family and time away from your life, which you don't get back either. And so it's really important to sort of respect the fact that somebody is taking away their life to be able to let everybody just live the way we do now.
I think that's very well put, I'm thinking the two things that would spring to mind when I think about we're into our 6th month now, sort of 5 months working together. Not saying it feels like 5 years. 5 months working together. Two things. Number one, first day was the 6th of January, Brownlow House, and obviously was a photographer there to get all the proper photographs. And I sort of spotted you out of the corner of my eye, and you were looking, and you plucked up the courage and said, "It'd be okay if I just fix your tie there?" So the tie must have been slightly off, and they fixed the medals and fixed the tie. That mothering instinct came out. I thought, yeah, that's okay. I come sometimes with 2 ties. They say, which one do you want?
I think it's more a case, but you remember, like back in any of your training, and especially if it was anything ceremonial, you're there, you're fixing each other, because you don't want somebody going out looking shabby, because it's a reflection on everybody.
Of course, no, absolutely, and I was glad you did, because it was good. But Gavin, you're so tense, but it's like, how's this guy going to react to this? I mean, go tear away. But the second one, I have to say, it was actually in this very room, and that is the day. And sometimes people say to me about the role, and I've explained that. I'll tell the story first. I'll come back to that. So in this very room, I guess about 6-7 weeks ago, we presented medals to the family of Dean Lockhart, who obviously passed in 2021 through hidden wounds. And that was for me, it was the first time I'd partaken in that. So it was a little bit, just want to make sure you got it right. You know, what do you say in that scenario? But you were there, and I remember just empathy you were able to show to Dean's mother. And there was a lovely moment with the two of you where you weren't even saying that much, but there was just a look between you. And I remember thinking, wow, you know, Rachel's a really perfect person for this role. And that stuck in my mind, you know. So people said to me, but I'm sure you remember that day. Do you want to speak that day?
Well, I felt for the mother, Dean's mother, because you know she's lost her son, it was through suicide. That's very open about it. But at the same time, we were able to do something small in the office and get her replacement medals, because they didn't have any military kind of memorabilia to remember, and he had 3 sons, so it was really important for the family. But I think for that particular incident, it was like, I've lost friends in service as well, some through suicide as well, and you have to kind of go all the way down to the bottom and say, you know what, while I can never understand fully what you're going through, all I can say is that your son was part of a community that will never forget him, because there are people that are besides, I will never forget the people I serve with that are now gone. I'll never forget them. And likewise, Dean will. And for a mother to hear that my son's not just a number, that, you know, even though the world moves on, there are friends and family that will still remember him, is so important. And to be able to do that for a family, that's probably like one of the highlights, to be honest. It's making that pain more bearable.
Yeah, no, again, very, very well put. I was going to say earlier, people said to me about what's the role like, and they're saying that there are such different emotions you go through. So that day here, presenting those medals to, you know, the Dean's family, it turns out I actually had played football with his uncle. Obviously, I had no idea. So that connects in them with Dean's dad. But then, well, a week later, you're presenting a framed picture of the Poppies to a 100-year-old veteran, who's obviously still alive, who served the Second World War. I mean, they're just 2 completely different spectrums of emotion, but all go into the community that is the military. So one last question then, what advice would you give to a young lady, particularly, say, thinking about a career in the military, wondering is it for them, wondering how they'll be treated being female? What advice would you give them?
I think I would give them, go for, and this would be regardless of gender, I would say go for it, because if you want to do something, you will never know unless you try. So the worst thing you can do is fail, and failure is not a bad thing, because failure gives you life lessons and it gives you direction. So if you go and you succeed, amazing, well done, brilliant, all the best of luck. If you go and you fail, pick yourself up, carry on, whether it be a different direction or a second try, it doesn't matter, because you learn from the first time you fall, and that's irrespective. But the one thing I would really want to highlight is that in today's society, yes, the military is still male dominant. There are female opportunities there, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. But the same thing can be said in industry, particularly like engineering, construction as well. It's not just being a female. I think in today's world, you still face challenges that you might not have elsewhere, but it's not just in the military. So be real to it. Acknowledge it, know about it. I did whenever I joined the RMP and didn't join the artillery, and I had friends that did join the artillery and they had a great time. But be aware of what you want to do and choose your path wisely, because you can either, like anything in life, you can make it hard or you can make it easy.
Yeah, great advice, Rachel. Absolute pleasure having you on. We can go back to our number rules after this. But no, it's been really good unpacking. I've learned things about you today that I didn't actually know, which is great. And yeah, this will make for a really good podcast. So thank you very much for coming in today.
Thank you.